is now time to review AEW Worlds End 2024 that happened at the Edition Financial Arena in Orlando, Florida on December 28th, 2024. Big show, lots of stuff happening on this show. I would say, there's lots of news to go over. It's a very newsworthy show. And on top of that, tremendous, exceptional pro wrestling matches mixed in with some questionable ideas. I would say a perfect representation of where we're at with AEW in 2024 when we talk about the when some people talk about the identity crisis that AEW might be in, which I concur. I'm agreeing with it. Where you have things of a certain style of wrestling presentation and other things of another certain style of wrestling presentation, and some of them might be a little less successful than the other, and so on and so forth. I think this show is a good representation of that. I think this show pretty much encompasses all of the things that make up AEW for good and ill. And it's a really good snapshot of the year 2024 for the company. It's a show I enjoyed overall. I thought it was a good show, just to get that out of the way. But we're going to get into it. We're going to get into the weeds. We're going to break this down as we usually do. But first, we got to talk about some business. 6,711 tickets were distributed according to WrestleTix. Now I'm recording this review the day after. Today is the 29th. This was we haven't gotten WrestleTix's final count. This is from an update that WrestleTix put out yesterday. So the setup was for 7,028 people, again according to WrestleTix, in a venue that I believe for basketball matches, if memory serves me right, I checked before starting. 9,500 is the capacity of the Edition Financial Arena for basketball. So of course we're not getting 9,500 for a wrestling show because you take stuff away for production, for the stage and all that. So overall, I don't know how close we were to a true capacity, but if the setup was 7,000 and we were at 6,700 for tickets distributed, well, we got pretty close. And again, looking at how hot this crowd was, how energetic this was, because the crowd was very good. Again, tonight, we are continuing to demonstrate that AEW running smaller venues is doing a great service to the show. Service, not the service. Service to the show. Because the crowds seem more enthusiastic. They seem into it. It doesn't feel as cavernous. You don't have these weird camera angles when, we're trying to pan through the audience, but you can't because you'll be exposing that 3/4 of the building isn't full. Let's say like running one of the big arenas, right? So again, another demonstration that the smaller venues are working, that strategy is working for AEW. And until we get to the point where AEW tickets start selling out on day one and AEW feels confident to run bigger buildings again, this is absolutely the way to go because it does help the product come across as better and more energetic than the opposite, because, well, for all the reasons that we mentioned multiple times when we start talking about this. So yeah, I know I talk about if you listen to the AEW Dynamite reviews that I do every week here on the MrWarrenHayes show, then that I've been harping on this for the past few weeks, how good the smaller venues have been working out for AEW in general. And I think I'm probably going to get off this horse now, at least for a while. Like, it's not going to be as much of a starter talking point to the reviews, because I think everyone sort of sees it now. It's been a few weeks that they've been doing it, and I think they've been very successful at it. So, this is probably the last time I'm going to put this record on, or at least play this recording, because it kind of sounds like one. It's exactly the same thing I say every time. But I think we're going to start moving on from that discussion point, bring it up maybe on occasion, but I might not hammer it home as much as I have, for multiple reasons. And one of the reasons, well, it's like at some point you're like, yes, Warren, yes, as an audience, you'd be like, yes, you tell us all the time, yes, quite. But yeah, see, I already have to let go. I already have to move on. So let's move on. Let's start talking about the show in and about itself. Because yeah, look, I thought this was, like I mentioned, I thought this was a good show. I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it. I thought it was a very good show. And I think it's, I think one of the things, of course, that helps out this show is that it's first of all, it's sprinkled with two high-level 5-star matches, at least for me. And throughout, there's more than enough stuff to make this show entertaining, sustainable. There's stuff that is completely, there's stuff here that was just annoying. I don't think there's anything that was outright bad. So let's start talking about the show. A show that I enjoyed. Just like I said from the get-go, this was a show that I enjoyed, that I really liked. I thought it was quite good, actually. Of course, when you're supported by two incredible 5-star matches, that goes a long way to carrying your enjoyment of a wrestling show. But outside of that, I think there was multiple great things happening on the card that made me excited. There's a couple of things that didn't make me as excited, that I thought were not necessarily inspired or good, or things that I was just not interested in. We'll get to all of that. And I'm already, I think already you can start making assumptions as to, some of these qualifiers I use, what qualifiers I'm going to use specifically for certain matches. But overall, a solid pro wrestling offering by AEW, which again, continues to prove that it is a pay-per-view company. The pay-per-view, look, even if there's stuff here that I didn't care for, that I thought was quite mid, or stuff that I thought was borderline bad, the rest absolutely makes up for it, right? And a lot of people got really excited at the idea that there was only 8 matches. I don't know, whoopee. It's like, a thing that I still do not get behind, and that I still do not understand. And that I still think is a content creator issue. This idea that AEW has so many matches and so on and so forth, right? I still think it's like, to a fan, I don't think it's a problem. I really don't think it's all that much of a problem. If you like pro wrestling, if you like to watch pro wrestling matches, an AEW pay-per-view always delivers. If you like the Paul Levesque specials, where you get like 5 matches that total about, that struggle to total up to 40% of your entire watch time of a PLE, as far as bell to bell action goes, that's fine as well. Different strokes for different folks, but to me, 11 matches on a card, I don't have a problem with it. Some matches don't have time to breathe, so on and so forth. And I think the idea, however, I will give this on this night, I will acquiesce that a lot of these matches had more time to breathe than your typical AEW pay-per-view, where, like I said, there's about, there's 10, 11 matches to the card, and everyone's getting their stuff in. So you don't have like these matches that have a little more, the couple of minutes more, that often you'd be like, hey, you know what? This could use a little more time. On the flip side, there's a couple of matches where you're like, well, this could have used a little less time. Or look, there's always pros and cons to any type of scenario. I don't think there's a perfect formula to the conundrum of the number of matches on the card versus the time allotted to each match, how this all works out. But you know, when I look at the match times, the longest match of the night was the Monet Statlander match, which was, of course, tremendous. You know, this doesn't qualify as a match that overstayed its welcome. The shortest match was 13 minutes, which was the Okada Ricochet match, which kind of surprised me. But you know, I think it's nonetheless and I mean, is this typical fare? Is this where usually, because I don't necessarily pay attention to match times as much as other people do. Is this like standard fare for an AEW pay-per-view for the shortest match? Is this usually where it hangs? I feel it's a little. I feel the shortest match on most AEW pay-per-views. I'm not saying all. I'm saying most AEW pay-per-views. I think that's it's a little shorter than that, right? Don't we hang around more like the 10-minute mark and stuff like that? Usually, it's exciting. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. So while I still think that the issue that exists in wrestling discussion online is spurred on by wrestling content creators who apparently don't like it when the thing that provides them their job or their hobby, particularly like people who make a living out of this and who complain about pay-per-view lengths. You know, I don't understand that. I've never understood it. People who bitch about the pay-per-view lengths, I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. I don't. You like wrestling or you don't, right? You just like wrestling or you don't. Or do you just want to watch your one pay-per-view and then have the rest of your weekend off? I don't know what the thing is. I couldn't tell you. Like later today, I'm gonna slap down the Stardom show, the Dream Queendom show, which apparently was very good on top of that from what I've seen. I'm trying to stay as spoiler free as possible, but I think people really like it, so I'm excited to watch it. You know, am I gonna sit here and complain that, oh no, there's too much wrestling, I can't believe I'm watching I'm making the choice to watch these shows on top of that. And I'm not getting paid. No one's like giving me an advance. No one's telling me, Warren, you have to sit down, you have to watch this. Like, it's such a weird spot, I find, that some content creators find themselves in, where they outright dislike the fact that there's a lot of wrestling that they have to cover, a lot of wrestling that they have to watch, and they bitch about it, whereas this is their bread and butter. Like, this is what they do. I'm specifically talking about people who get paid to cover it. I don't understand it. Because just a few years ago, this type of environment was non-existent, where you'd have two major North American promotions, then everything around it, then you know, the indies and TNA, and so, you know, and then you'd have everything from Japan. You know, once New Japan World opened up, that was a whole other thing, right? And now you have access to Wrestle Universe and all the promotions that are there, and it's just, it boggles the imagination as to why people who are in this space, as a lot of them like to say, and who, you know, clamor at how great an environment it is and so on and so forth. I don't know if they realize how privileged a position they're in to be doing this, to be able to cover wrestling and get paid for it. There are limited spots for this. Whether it's with promotions or you know, paid organizations, or even like for the mind share of people. These people are in positions of privilege. They are doing, for a lot of people, a dream job to be able to go out there and get paid for just sitting in front of a microphone and in front of a webcam and saying, I like this, I didn't like this. And they'll find a way to complain about there's too much wrestling. It boggles my mind. It legitimately boggles my mind. You know, if I were in a position, look, let me put it this way. I don't make any real money doing this. And this is not me complaining about it. Like, this is just the reality. And frankly, I don't need to. It's just like, don't get me wrong, like the donations, the super chats, the memberships, those are all cool and a nice show of support and does help offset some expenses and, in minute fashion. And that's tremendous, but I appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. But I am not, I don't get paid to do this. I want to talk about pro wrestling. When is the last time you have heard me complain? Oh my God, there's just too much stuff. Oh my God, none of the. In fact, I will complain when there's not enough wrestling on a show. I'll sit here and tell you the opposite. I'll sit here and I will complain that a Paul Levesque PLE doesn't have enough wrestling on it. Anyway, some people need a little reality check sometimes, and it's a little weird. I don't understand it. I really don't. If you love wrestling as much as you say you do, you should not be bitching about there being too much wrestling or, but I think, I kind of wanted to say it. I kind of wanted to talk about it. I do once in a while. This is not a new topic, but nonetheless, the show itself. Where do we start? I think we'll start with the tippy top of the card, because there's a lot of these newsworthy items that happen towards the top. So why don't we start with John Moxley? This is the new way to pronounce his name. It's canon. Well, how's it canon, Warren? I decided this was canon. John Moxley defeated Adam Page, Jay White, and Orange Cassidy to successfully retain the AEW World Championship. So I know a lot of people are really, really low on this match, who really didn't like it. I have colleagues who outright detest it. I'm not ready to go that far. First of all, again, since we're talking about match times, this match went 17 minutes, and I'm kind of shocked. I thought this match was I thought this match went like 12 at top. It did not feel like an extended. It did not feel like an extended 10+ minute match, especially not one that's slowly inching over to 20. I'm kind of surprised at that. I did not see that coming. Neither did I see this match. Neither did I see coming this match as a good old Dynamite collision four-way, a match that you could have on any old AEW show. Like, that's my main critique of it. It's just there was nothing special about it. There was nothing that was really intriguing about it. And the match itself just kind of happened, and that's where we're at. Like that, that's pretty much what happened. I think one of the issues here is that there was no one in this match that was a clear pick to be someone who could take the belt away from John Moxley, as we pronounce it now. There was no like one guy who you're like, oh yeah, this is going this way, right? Hangman is absolutely winning, or Jay White. I think this is something that ultimately hurt the hype for the match, and that is ultimately hurting the hype for the Death Riders and specifically Mox's reign right now, right? I'll get to that in a second, though. The match, I don't necessarily have an issue with the match, but it came across as just stuff happening, and there was no real through line, and you could have added 2 more people in there or 3 more people and call it a scramble, and I'm like, okay, I don't know. It just left me completely neutral about it. Completely neutral. And in the during the match, Christian Cage is watching all of this from his booth all the way at the top, with his Money in the Bank ripoff thing. God, I am so excited for that to just disappear and never come back. I know it will probably never come back, but I'm so excited for this to be done, because this is like, you can tell that they did the thing, the Money in the Bank gimmick thing, and you could tell they had no plans for it, because then they came back with the Jon Moxley stuff, where Mox is like calling all the shots and so on and so forth. And then you have this in the background, and they don't know what to do with it. Now they might have an out. Again, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. But I think the spot that made me that made me smile the most, I guess, that I enjoyed the most was the baby faces. Is Hangman a baby face again? At least the challengers. How about that? Doing a shield bomb on Mox, like a clear shield bomb through the Spanish announce table. You couldn't get it clearer than that. And then Mox is bleeding from the back of his head. Like, Mox is open on the back of his head and he's bleeding down his back, which it's a tremendous visual. But he was open hard way. This was not planned, but whatever. I don't know, people popped when Marina Shafir ate a Blade Runner. That's all good. And, I don't know. I really don't have much for you in regards to this match, or the outcome. I think everyone knew that Mox was going to retain, and I think that took a lot of stuffing away from it. And look, I think Orange Cassidy as a top guy, I think the ship has sailed. I think that there's still something to be done with Jay White, because I think Jay White has been tremendous throughout this entire feud. He's the only guy I feel who would come in and take on the Death Riders like all by himself, and that he'd be able to get the best of them and so on and so on. Like, I really think that he's been a successful pillar of all of this, and should be included in a proper main event upper tier feud, not get relegated back to entertaining the pre-shows against the Bang Bangs with the Bang Bang Scissor Gang, I should say. He's above all of this. He's so much better than that. And I think a lot of AEW fans recognize this, and I think he's the kind of guy that, if Tony Khan wanted to give him a push, I think it would be instantly accepted. It wouldn't be rejected. There's a lot of people were trying to make something out of something, and that's not quite connecting with the audience. I think Jay White would be an opposite case. Adam Page is going to be fine because it's Adam Page. But I'm going to tell you, I don't think this is interesting what they're doing with the old Hangman. I don't think he thinks what he's doing is interesting. And I think none of it is coming, at least this whole feud here, I don't think anyone is calling it interesting because everything is so vague in regards to Jon Moxley and his motivations and now his attitude. Now is Jon Moxley now is he a cowardly heel now? And are the Death Riders really a truly still a group of tough guys that, just run roughshod? When they did the Rampage angle, where they destroyed the production truck and so on, right? I was like, okay, can we sustain that energy, right? That's the one thing. Can we sustain this energy where they truly have run of the place and that they're putting people on notice? The thing that I had called in regards to this angle that they were building here was that from the get-go, all of Mox's and the Death Riders' opponents have all been mid-card guys and lower card guys, right? They'd come after the Dark Order. They'd come after pre AEW Tag Team Championship Private Party, right? Orange Cassidy was slated to be the first big challenger to Mox. Like no one from the real upper crust of AEW was coming after the Death Riders, or vice versa. We didn't have anyone. We didn't have anyone coming after MJF. We didn't have anyone coming after Will Ospreay or Swerve Strickland, right? It was all firmly entrenched lower mid-card guys. And you can give me whatever arguments you want to make in regards to Orange Cassidy and whether or not he's a top guy, whether he's a true top guy. We can have all of these conversations, not a problem. But I think this firmly establishes him, the end of this match here, as a mid-card dude, and that's where he's going to live. I don't think whatever magic they had with Orange Cassidy last year at the tail end of his international title run, I think it's dissipated. I think it's gone now. No one feels menacing or menaced in this. Like John Moxley going after the mid-carders, like, you know, who were standing up, right? You remember all the visuals. And I was saying it back on the reviews in the day. You know, if your opposition is the Death Riders and the Jay Lethal crew, and, you know, that's strata, you know, top flight. Again, not people that I'm necessarily poo-pooing on. I'm just saying people that AEW has not established to you and I as a viewer, as a fan, as people you should be invested in. People who aren't anything else than, you know, J-Brones or losers or so on and so forth, right? Who just lose matches all the time, who aren't established as fixtures that you can get behind. If these are the people standing up to the Death Riders, who gives a shit? But if the Death Riders run in and they're able to destroy, you know, Kazuchika Okada, for instance, I know, bear with me here. Then you have a whole other impression here. Then you have a whole other thing established here. I'm starting to see things, comparisons between, you know, the House of Torture over in Japan and the Death Riders. And I gotta say, tomato to a certain degree, I don't think it's as bad as the House of Torture. But when you see what happened in the match last night, you're like, yeah, I kind of see it. I understand the sentiment. I don't think it's as bad, but I understand the sentiment. This angle started off really cool. It started off really strong. But now it's the quality of opponents just isn't there. And having Hangman coming out for Mox after a well-established heel turn, where he was basically built up as this righteous heel, right? Because, you know, Hangman did nothing wrong, etc. And we're still living off of that. And he's coming in to position himself against Mox, where you kind of go, okay, so should I be cheering for Hangman Adam Page? What is the intent, the motivation here? Because Hangman's story around the World Championship is that he's destined to have another run. He will have another run because in a lot of ways he's still the main character of the company, and he's still a guy people are ready to throw their support behind, and he's a guy who can't have a bad match. So of course people are excited at the prospect of Hangman Adam Page getting out there and doing some legitimately great things. But was this the time? I think the timing was off on it. I don't think anyone rejects the idea of Mox versus Hangman. We've seen it before. Why not see it again? Let's do it again in another era, in another time, with different stakes, different realities. That's super interesting. I'm ready to go with another Hangman Page run. And I believe this whole thing would have been a lot more successful if we had focused on Page versus Mox instead of making this a four-way. I think it would have been a lot more exciting and probably would have helped the transition of Hangman Page's character from a heel, maybe more to a face-leaning tweener, to eventually going full-on babyface. But what really gets me here, when I say things are vague, we've been hearing talk about how this match was for the soul of AEW, right? The soul of AEW is on the line. But the thing is what if I agree with Jon Moxley? What if I'm on his side? What if Jon Moxley, whatever he's been purporting, I'm like, yeah, I mean, Mox is right. I'm okay if, I'm okay if he becomes the soul of AEW. This is fine. Because I'm not sure I'm excited about the rest of what's going on in the company. And that's really vague. It's really vague because I don't think Mox has ever established that this is what he was looking to do. I don't think he's ever established that this is the thing, right? I don't think that this is the thing. He's said that this is what I want to do moving forward, is reclaim the soul of AEW, so on and so forth. No, if I remember correctly, he mostly came in because he was tired of people's egos getting in the way of having a great company, of having a great wrestling promotion, that we had strayed from the idea of what AEW was because, the young guys weren't stepping up. No one wants it enough. And the older guys, well, it was all about ego. Like, these were clearly CM Punk shots and whoever else Mox might have some issues with backstage, right? And I was like, yeah, I agree. Like, there was nothing I didn't agree with in regards to what Mox was laying down. So I don't know where this thing about the soul of AEW has kicked in, where it's more like Mox's motivations from the start have always been sort of vague, and also I might agree with them. And I also think that in the meantime, it's the Death Riders have lost their edge. I think the Death Riders have lost their edge. They don't feel as menacing. They get punked out fairly easily now. There was a time where they would just overwhelm and deliver these cool beatings. Now it's more like, how quickly can Mox take a powder and get the hell out of there? Does Mox have to be a chicken shit heel? I don't think he has to. Not Jon Moxley, right? I've done a couple of comparisons with the NWO, right? The NWO didn't wait for months upon months to have serious challengers stand up against them, right? Like, the idea was that the WCW locker room was banding against them, and it was the top guys who were mounting the charge, and they were having issues. They were having problems because they had trouble winning because their top guy, the guy who truly was the representation of WCW, the soul of WCW, if you will, Sting, was not around. But when Sting started coming back, that's when the tides turned. Is this what we're trying to do? Maybe, but we're missing the guy who represents. We're missing the guy who could stand up to Mox and would be a credible challenger, right? Because it's not going to be Adam Copeland. Let's talk about that after the match, right? Because the match ends with there's a lot of interference at the end. There's really a lot of interference at the end, and Wheeler Yuta, I think he lands a Busaiku knee on Jay White, and then Mox does the Death Rider and gets the win, right? And they're all in the ring. They're all patting each other on the back. And then FTR come out. the lights go down, and then you think you know me, and Adam Copeland's music hits, and the place erupts because everyone likes the Adam Copeland. And they basically establish that because then they come after the Death Riders, and of course, and again, Mox hits the bricks. I'm like, what are we doing? It's like, what? Why? Why does he? Don't get me wrong. I understand the idea of, don't have them touch until and I get that, but why is Mox running? Why is Mox running away? What? And this is Adam Copeland. God bless him, but it's like, he's not necessarily the epitome of tough guy. It's not like suddenly Stan Hansen was barreling down the road, the ramp, I should say. Then we're like, oh shit, I gotta dodge this. It's like, it's fine. And Adam Copeland, no, I remember now. I say Mox hit a powder, but he really didn't. And come to think of it, right? He ate a spear. Mox ate a spear. So I apologize for that. That's what happened. And then Mox left, right? So Mox at least did try to stand up to him. No, it's okay. So let's retcon what I just said. It just came back to me. I apologize. We're gonna leave this in just so that you all, I'm nothing if not transparent and honest. So especially when I fuck up. So Adam Copeland and FTR, like they're setting themselves up as the guys who are going to come after the Death Riders. Now, credit where credit is due. This has been built for weeks. This has been simmering, being set up for weeks, and I appreciate that. With the Death Riders kidnapping FTR and then leaving them in a ditch somewhere. That's how that was resolved, with FTR back in their homes and going, yeah, we were beaten down and we were left in the ditch on the side of the road. Okay. Like, you don't have to show me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying here, oh, it would have been great if we had seen it. Because that's the kind of shit that I don't want to see because it's kind of stupid and it would, I don't like that kind of stuff in pro wrestling. So that didn't bother me in the slightest. But it's been building since then, right? It's really been building since then. So credit where credit is due. That's good. And, we had been hearing that Adam Copeland was, soon going to return, that he had been cleared and so on and so forth. And, I don't mind this as much. I think there's a lot of people who are really upset about this. And I think there's a lot of people who are calling this like, of course, two former WWE guys who are going to be fighting for the soul of AEW. Now, I think there's one thing that we have to be super, super fair on. Like, absolutely 100% fair. Yes, Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose came into prominence in the WWE. I think that's fair. But it's also fair to say that Mox, I think you can include him in the day oneers, in the OGs. Like when he debuted for AEW, it was a complete transformation. Like, let's not forget, this was truly the first WWE guy that AEW put their hands on, and it's a guy, well, outside of Chris Jericho, but let's not forget, like outside of Chris Jericho, right? Let's not forget when Mox came in, like he embraced AEW, like he embraced everything about it, the company, the values, the vibe. Like it's hard to consider that in 2025, because this is where we're about to go, right? But that all these years later, we're still going to go, that's a former WWE guy. When this is clearly a guy who went all on the company, who became, for years, was even the company's MVP. And he was the guy that, when things would go sideways, he'd break glass and bring in Jon Moxley. And if he didn't fix it, he would be a credible stand-up guy to make sure that the train stayed on rails. That's who he is. So, in fairness, I don't think of Jon Moxley as a former WWE guy anymore, because it's been so long and he's so invested in this company and he has done so much good for AEW, and he's a day oneer. He's an OG. He's been there from the most formative era, in the most formative era of the company. So I don't have an issue with this in any way, shape, or form. I'm completely okay with this, and I don't perceive Jon Moxley as a WWE guy. Now, Adam Copeland, he's been in AEW for a cup of coffee. He's been around for a while, but he's also been injured for a while. And I can understand that then people go, well, a former WWE guy. But, that, again, is like, okay, if you want to go that route, that's fine. Me, it's more a question of the fact that he's barely been here. And I think he is someone who is still very tied to his WWE roots. A guy who was with the other company for all of his wrestling career, really. Like, he's never went anywhere else. That's always what he's done. He's always been in the WWF, WWE. So to have this guy come in who hasn't been around for that long and then entered the fray as wanting to fight for the soul of AEW, I think that's weirder than pointing at these two guys saying, oh, former WWE guys. I mean, we're like, Copeland doesn't feel like a guy I can count on to restore anything regarding AEW. I don't necessarily hate it because I don't hate Adam Copeland. I think in AEW, I think he's been overall a net positive. I think he's, I think he's a guy who has understood how the vibes work in the company, how the audience reacts to stuff differently than in WWE, and has adapted and has been. It's been a net positive overall for him, and I think he's been a net positive for the company overall. But is he a top guy? I don't think so. I hate to say it, but I think this is just another filler feud. Like, Adam Copeland is not an AEW top guy. When you have a plethora of other top guys, but now the other top guys have all been slated into programs. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. But, everyone else is, but nonetheless, you've got other top guys who aren't in programs right now that you could put into these positions. And I don't know why we're waiting. I don't know why we're going with Copeland out of the gate here. I think everyone is excited to see, Darby and Mox. I think that one has been expertly built so far. I think that's the one everyone's looking forward to. This is just another filler feud. And good for Copeland. But I don't know what I think we're expecting a main course, but instead we're getting appetizers. And what it's doing is that it's not helping Mox. It's not helping the Death Riders, right? Again, I might be surprised. And I will always allow myself, I will always be open enough to allow myself to be surprised. Maybe this will turn out to be a complete game changer, but it feels weird. It feels strange. And I'm excited for the Death Riders to come across as something again. I don't know. One thing, though, that I think is a net positive here is that you can easily get this fucking Money in the Bank bullshit away forever. Because, as Adam Copeland returned and whatnot, there was a shot of Christian Cage up in his booth, looking rather dismayed, a little worried that Cope was back. And it's like, okay, we got to go kind of thing. Where he ejected himself along with the patriarchy. And I think that there might be a way to get to get this Money in the Bank bullshit out of the way. If Adam Copeland goes to challenge Jon Moxley says, look, if he's going the way of old school AEW, he will outright tell him, You are not challenging me for this. You have been out with an injury. You've been mucking around. You just pop in. You think you can do whatever you want in this company. No, you have to earn a spot. It's not about egos, right? That's what Jon Moxley should do. And it's a babyface move, but bear with me here. Bear with me. That's still what should be done. So you'd have Adam Copeland then, okay, fine. I know a way to get to you. And then he challenges Christian for the Money in the Bank nonsense. And then Adam wins it. And since he's a babyface, well, he's not going to cash in on Moxley. He's going to set a date. And that date will probably be the stadium show. Hopefully not Revolution. Hopefully we get something juicier for Revolution. Look, anyway, let's not get too deep in the fantasy booking here, especially since I'm not really good at it and I don't really like it either. I'm not a fan. Nonetheless, I think they have an out here to get rid of it. And I hope that they never do it again. I hope they never fucking do it again. I hope it disappears into the ether, and that in 5 more years, when we're talking about the past AEW stuff, we sit around and chuckle and go, you remember when they tried to do the Money in the Bank? Yeah, that was so dumb. Hopefully. Anyway, so those are my overall thoughts as we stand right now in regards to the main event. Do you want a star rating? I gave this 2.5 stars. I thought this was very ordinary. Like I said, in regards to my disjointed, no through line, just stuff happening. I really couldn't care. They really couldn't get me to care about this match. And it's a shame because there's a lot of people I like in that match. And then we wrapped everything up regarding the Continental Classic. We had the semifinals, we had the finals, we had Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay pull double duty, and Kazuchika Okada wins the C2. He's effectively the first wrestler in the 2-year history of the C2. He's the first wrestler to successfully defend the title in tournament. So he's got that going for him. And he is a 5-time tournament wrestling winner, up there with Chono. Okay. Promoters got to promote. You got to stretch that taffy, brother. Let me tell you. The finals, everything regarding the C2 on World's End rocked, and it is your reason to watch this show. Unquestionably, everything rocked. We got 2 5-star matches on it. Look, this is what often I talk about. That I talked about in the C when I was covering the C2 over on the Dynamite Review, putting over the Dynamite Review hard. You should subscribe to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel wherever you can. That way you won't miss the Dynamite reviews, which I talk about a lot because I do a lot of talking about AEW on the Dynamite Review. But when I've been breaking stuff down, and especially when I'm doing the G1 coverage over the summer, it's that feeling. That's the feeling we got at World's End for these matches. This is how a fucking wrestling tournament should feel like at the end, or even throughout. But just incredible matches from guys absolutely leaving it all out there, flooring you with the talent and the capacity that they have. This is how I finished that. I finished watching, the finals, and I was like, God damn, this rules. And these are unquestionably, unfucking questionably, the best matches of the tournament happened here. I think it elevated everything else. And things kind of went my way, where I'm like, okay. Where it was like, so ultimately, I ended up maybe missing on the my final prediction, But Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay in the finals, this is what I've been saying. If AEW's thing now is that they're promoting this tournament as being a highfalutin, an important, crucial tournament in professional wrestling, one of the most prestigious in the world, well, you got to bring the guys who bring the prestige. You finish with Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada, and you finish with them. They win, and that's it. That's poof. You let them do a tremendous match, and there you have it. This is how you set the seeds for your tournament to be credibly perceived as a great tournament. Not just great because you tell us it's great, right? Not just because the promoter is in promoter mode and talking about how great it is. No. We're talking when the fans get behind it, when the fans see it, and the buzz around it is, this tournament actually does rule. It's the case with the G1. And the G1 hasn't even been comparable to the great G1s of the mid-2010s, or throughout the 2010s, really. It hasn't even been comparable to those. And yet we still talk in reverence about it because the standard of quality is there, was established, regardless of what the promotion tells you. Regardless of whether the promotion tells you, this is the greatest tournament of all time. Like, all promotions are going to tell you that their shit is the greatest. But when it actually is, you can feel it. You can feel that buzz. So I'm hoping that this kind of vibe that they've established here will carry into the C2 next year if they do it again. I don't think it's as much the rating success as it was last year, as the inaugural edition was. I think we're closer to what AEW is able to be in these types of circumstances. I had a lot of fun watching the tournament. I have a lot of fun watching AEW because of the tournament. The tournament makes me happy. For me, this is what I seek out in pro wrestling. It's oddly enough, it's pro wrestling that I look for. But it was the right call. Like, I can't deny that this was the right call. And it was the right call because everything was really, because you saw where we're going. All throughout the tournament, all throughout these finals, the semifinals, the finals, everything sort of came together. And you see where we're going with stuff. Well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's start talking about the obvious talking point here. Let's begin. Will Ospreay, clearly, another incredible performance. He does it again. He does it again twice in the same night. Just, look, I know it's corny. Or it might be corny. I don't know if I know it's corny. But it may sound corny. How about that? We are lucky. Some would use the word blessed. But I'm going to use the word lucky. To be alive watching one of the greatest professional wrestlers to ever do it, and who will be regarded as this down the road, in his prime, delivering surefire, high quality, high octane matches that are going to influence countless pro wrestlers for years to come and establish an entirely different bar for pro wrestling. The guys back in the 80s, when they were watching Ric Flair, probably felt the same thing. Where they were like, Jesus, Terry Funk, those guys. And we currently have one of these guys in our midst right now who is establishing his legacy as one of the greatest to ever do it. I don't even think you can properly argue anymore. I don't think there's an argument to be made, or at least a good faith argument amongst people who watch pro wrestling, to say that there is not a better pro wrestler on planet Earth right now than Will Ospreay, a guy who completely gets it, not only gets it, but executes what he does perfectly on a high level every single time. And whose result is what? 5-star match, 4.5, or scale breaking when it comes to Dave. It's like, that's what he is. This is a guy whose influence is going to be felt for years, for a couple of generations for sure, until we find another Will Ospreay. And we will probably not be around anymore for this next huge pivot in pro wrestling. I've watched wrestling for so long, and there's seldom a guy that I recall seeing who has been so consistently great at the highest possible levels of pro wrestling as Will Ospreay, and be exactly what you want out of it, and exceeding in areas where you could excuse if he's not great. You could excuse Will Ospreay to say, if he were to say, yeah, you know what, his promos aren't great. And there was a time you could say that in regards to Will Ospreay. There was a time you could go, Will Ospreay, great, he's fantastic, but man, he just can't talk. No longer the case. That promo that he cut with Renee after his match, backstage, when he's got the bandage, and they didn't clean him up completely, Of course, Will is like, no, take just a little bit off, but leave most of it. And that promo he cut, it got me fired up. I was standing up, clapping. Like, let's go. And he's imploring the audience. He's telling the audience, I need you guys. You got to get behind me. I just let it all out there in the ring, and boy, I think I left some brain matter out there because I cut myself too deep. And I need you guys. And the audience is like fired up. There are people who are worried that Will Ospreay loses too much. I say it doesn't matter. I say Will Ospreay is the easiest guy to heat up in the world, because Will Ospreay is the best professional wrestler on planet Earth, and everyone sees it and everyone knows it. He connects with the audience in a way that only a truly great pro wrestler can. Now, I'm not saying that he should spend the entire year and have a losing streak. No, we're going to have to do something proper with Will, which is why it boggles my mind that Will, the guy who came into this company saying, we got to restore the feeling. I am the feeling, bruv, right? Meanwhile, there's John Moxley on the other end, trying to tear down the establishment. Like, that's an easy clash. That's an easy one-on-one right there. When this tournament finished, when this tournament was done, I sat there, I was still buzzing, and I saw the reactions from the audience, right? The people in the front row, up on their feet, slapping the barricade, because Ospreay was firing up, because Ospreay was doing that's the coolest fucking shit. And I was watching this and I was saying, I don't care what Tony Khan's plan is for 2025. What he has in his little notepad, what he's promised to people in the back. You scrap everything you're done. You scrap everything that you thought you were going to do, and you pivot to Will Ospreay, and you get that world championship on this man ASAP. It is preposterous that this guy, every time on pay-per-view, goes out there and outshines everyone else on the card, including your world champion. The only time that Will Ospreay doesn't happen, that his matches don't outshine the world champion, is when he's in a match with the world champion. That's the only time that his matches don't outshine the world championship match. I was like, no, there's no excuse. There's no excuse to not belt up Will Ospreay at this point anymore. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous. This is the guy you go full steam ahead on. This is a guy who understands what the pro wrestling audience wants. This is a guy who not only understands this, but can deliver it every single time. You got to stop waiting for the perfect moment. You got to stop waiting for the perfect moment when your company is struggling to put 3,000 people in a building for your weekly TV, when your ratings are at their lowest in the history of the company. You don't have the luxury to wait for the perfect moment. And I don't care how many times Will Ospreay has lost. You can do this with Will Ospreay anytime. You could do it starting on Wednesday on Dynamite if you wanted to. You could start it right there because Ospreay is ready to go and the audience is ready for Will Ospreay. I would argue that the audience is begging for Will Ospreay to be in a top spot. Never mind what Busted Open Radio and Eric Bischoff have to say about Will Ospreay or the bad faith accounts on Twitter. I would even go as far as to say for your 2025 resolution, Tony Khan, if you're listening, your 2025 resolution should be, I should get off social media. Not just get off Twitter, get off social media. It is not an appropriate representation of what the overall general professional wrestling fan wants or what they think. Because the well is too poisoned with bad faith morons. And off of it, keep your head down and put out the best pro wrestling show you can. And it starts by belting up the hottest guy you have in the company. And you've had him for almost a full year or a full year. I can't remember when Ospreay debuted, right? Didn't he debuted last fall, I think. You've had him for a year. Go. Like, what are you waiting for? You holding this as leverage for when his contract runs up? Like, what's the plan? What is the plan outside of let's build up Will Ospreay? And who cares? Everyone who says, oh, he's just a flippy guy, he's just he does choreographed stuff. He's a dancer, all of this bullshit. Yeah, I want to see wrestling and not gymnastics. These are all people who don't watch your show because if they did, they would not be talking about Will Ospreay in that way. So don't try to cater to people who don't watch your show and hate the show despite not watching it. Don't cater to them. Cater to the people who like it and let them bring in other fans. Anyway, let's start by talking about the matches. And then when I say start, let's continue by talking about the matches. Started with Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher, which was just a brilliant piece of work from both of these guys, right? Will Ospreay, tremendous. I just, don't have to reiterate everything I just said. Kyle Fletcher has grown into this one. People were worried. Oh, is he ready? Is this time? Is it, and I think that it turns out the trigger was pulled at the perfect moment. He had a tremendous story. His turn, joining the Don Callis family. Well, he had already joined. Well, you know what I mean. Becoming more entrenched in the Don Callis family. How about that? And elevating his game. And we knew he could hang with Will. We knew that could happen. This is a breakout year for Kyle Fletcher. Like, if you ask me, like if I have to write, a thing for a vote, you got to vote on a ballot. Who had a breakout year? Kyle Fletcher. I know Swerve Strickland is a good candidate as well, but I would also argue that Swerve has always been great. And everyone's always has forever seen it. Whereas Fletcher, there was always doubters, despite the people with a good head on their shoulders who have a nose for talent. They had always seen Kyle as a star, having star potential. You could make an argument for both. I'd go for Kyle because I think there's a lot of people who didn't expect anything out of Kyle and who are eating crow right now. This was just an incredible opener. This opened the show. It's like this 5-star match opened the show. I like this more than I like this a little more. I thought the heat was there. I thought the speed, the execution, I thought everything was there. God, what a finish. The finishes in these C2 matches tonight were just like so incredibly spot on. You know, he does a brainbuster towards the end, Fletcher does, which a move that he had been finishing matches with, right? And he did this after eating a hidden blade. He kicks out of the hidden blade, does his brainbuster, Will kicks out, then he does a Liger bomb, Ospreay kicks out again, and then we have just a series of moves, and Will Ospreay wraps it up with a Styles Clash. Crowd goes ape shit for it. And I love how they established this. They had been doing this for weeks, right? With Will pulling out the Styles Clash, which I think is more of, I kind of appreciate that Will has adopted the Style Clash, and doesn't it kind of feel more like his move now? I kind of dig it. Like it's really part of it. It's not just a thing that he pulls out to do the little throwback, you know, where it's like, oh, we're gonna pull out a bloody Sunday, you know, kind of thing. Like it's his thing, and he's been doing it for a few weeks in the tournament matches, right? Never finishes a match with it, right? But now, like they're landing bombs on each other, and then he pulls out the Styles Clash, and that's how he gets the win here. Big reaction from the crowd, and so crucial for another spot that happens later on in the tournament finals. But we'll get to that. I love this match. Like 5 stars. This is a go out of your way to watch situation. I thought this ruled. A brilliant piece of work. Will Ospreay does it again. Then we had Kazuchika Okada defeat Ricochet to move on, which was really good, super solid. You know, not on the same level, but I really loved this match. I thought it was a blast. And right off in this match here, Ospreay is showing a lot more life than in most of what he's done in this tournament. Just in this one match here, outside of the the Mark Briscoe match. Outside of that, right? Okada's really, he's got it tuned up, right? He's really feeling it. It's just tremendous, you know. But you know, and he plays the hits. You know, he's doing his usual setup. Ricochet lands the vertigo. Okada kicks out. Shooting star press follows. And Okada also avoids the spirit gun. I thought it was called the spear gun, but it's the spirit gun. And I thought it was the spear gun. And I always felt like he was setting up a spear in his gun. It always felt like but it's the spirit gun. I think I've been pronouncing it wrong. It's the spirit gun, not the spear gun. And I think spear gun is a better name than spirit gun. Okada does a twisting landslide in the Rainmaker for the win. A tremendous Rainmaker on top of that. Could call it the Trainmaker because it looked like he ran over poor old Ricochet. What a sell. What a tremendous sell. I think Ricochet was kind of excited to take the I think he was kind of excited to take the Rainmaker here. Great stuff. Yeah, I gave it 3 3/4 stars. You know, I think it worked. I think there's a lot of good stuff here. I even thought Ricochet looked more alive here as well. I think this heel turn is doing him some good. I think that this might motivate him to do things as well, to do better things in the ring. I mean, yeah, sort of get all of his act together. I think that this might be a component that he was missing. You know, I don't know if AEW fans really wanted to cheer for him. And I think I think this is something that there might be some teeth to. I think there's something here for him. And then after the match, we have he being Ricochet is standing alone in the ring, and Swerve Strickland comes out to mock him and has Prince Nana go around the audience delivering rolls of toilet paper, which is connected to the Hammerstein show, where a roll of toilet paper was thrown into the ring after Ricochet had a match, and it landed square between his legs, right on the nutsack, which is one of these great happenstance things. There was even an audience member who after Ricochet's match threw a roll of toilet paper into the ring, which I thought was really funny. But now that they're like AEW is embracing this, like the one fan doing it was very organic, and I thought that was really funny. But now AEW is embracing this, and they're bringing all sorts of. Now they want people to throw toilet paper. So I guess the idea here is we hope people will start throwing toilet paper to Ricochet, and you can tell the audience is having a good time chanting the fact that he's bald and whatnot at him, and Ricochet's playing into it. This has juice to it. I'm kind of into it. So clearly the next program for Ricochet is going to be against Swerve Strickland. Curious to see how this is going to go. You know, Swerve lost to Bobby Lashley and hasn't said a word, you know, hasn't popped back trying to right the wrong or whatnot. So I'm wondering what they're going to do with that. But this is not the focus of this. I don't want to focus on this too soon. But you know, we clearly established that out of the C2 for Ricochet here, out of these finals, we've got a new program moving forward, and a program, again, credit where credit is due, that has been simmering for the past couple of weeks with the little backstage interactions between both guys. It's been interesting. So again, credit where credit is due. They're building these feuds. They've been happening before the feuds happen, and so on and so forth. So it's good stuff. I got to give them the credit here. And then later on in the evening, after Okada having a big definitive win, and here's the thing, no bullshit, right? No low blows, no hidden objects, no nothing. Just a clean definitive win by Okada. And Ospreay getting his win after being a bloody mess. I didn't even talk about. I don't have to talk about the blood. We've all seen the amount of blood that gushed out of him, like a true to form Muta scale, amount of blood from Will, and just looking like hell worn over, looking like like the warrior coming back from battle and has to go immediately back. I think it's tremendous. So after both of these things, we get to the finals of the G1. What a fucking match this was. What an absolute fucking great match. In the tradition of the great G1 finals. And look, no big surprise. You've got two guys who have been up and down the G1 a couple of times. One guy who's been in his fair share of G1 finals. And Will's had a couple too. They know what to deliver here. And boy, did they deliver. And this is also, here's the thing, is that this is also what you want from AEW. This type of match right here, where they're just going at it. They're having a tremendous build. And then that final, look, there's stuff that happened in this match. Okay? Like there's stuff that happened in this match that I don't even understand how it's even possible, right? I don't know how Will Ospreay does it, where he's setting up for a move, he's getting set up for a move, and then all of a sudden we're doing something else, right? Like the Spanish Fly reversal from a Rainmaker. And it was earlier in the match with wasn't it earlier in the match with Fletcher? He's on Fletcher's shoulder because Fletcher's been lawn darting him, often throughout the match, and he's got him up on his shoulders again. And somehow, from being carried on this guy's shoulder, Will sort of reverses out of that and into a poison Rana. There's just stuff this man does that he defies everything I understand about pro wrestling. He's just not like us. He's just not like us. They're going hard in this match, Will and Okada. Okada has the spark. He has the flame. He's into it. He wants this match. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, so he's back. He's here. He never really left. He still has it in him, right? But again, we'll talk about that in a second. But this match here, where you've got dudes doing all sorts of incredible stuff, and especially that final sequence where they're just in and out, doing these counters, in and out of moves, up and down, both of them, and at such a high pace. You like your jaw is dropping. You're just, and all you're doing is absorbing this. And give us more of this. This is the stuff. These are the matches where AEW 100% differentiates itself from WWE. Not by doing, sports entertainment backstage gimmicks, and please welcome at this time, and all that stuff, which is all WWE coded. This is how AEW stands apart, where it becomes its own thing, where it's not just sports entertainment light. This is where it stands apart, because WWE cannot and will not do these types of matches. They will not have a match where a guy is bleeding his life out of his forehead. They won't. They can't. And the quality, the pace, the drama within this match, without having to resort to, in-ring monologues and Paul Heyman shaking his jowls on the side in dramatic fashion or whatever the fuck. None of this is necessary, because AEW has the talent and the people to pull it off. I'm not saying every match has to be this 5-star epic, but what I am saying is what I saw in the finishes of the Continental Classic, all 3 matches. These are all things that you could see fairly regularly. And I would even argue there was a time in this company where you would see this regularly. You could get this every week. We did. We used to. What an incredible match. What an incredible match. And they get the bell pop to start off too. People are into this. They get it. They understand what's going on here. They fight to the outside. Okada's motivated. He's on the floor. He's doing DDTs. He's doing drop kicks. He does this one drop kick off getting Will Ospreay off the corner, and Will sort of gets tangled up into as he falls, and Okada starts targeting the knee. Ospreay sort of sells the knee, so Okada starts going for it, and then we get the backpack neck breaker. We get some tremendous drop kicks from Okada. Will fights back, and he locks in the Styles Clash to a huge reaction from the crowd, and he covers Okada. Okada kicks out, but everyone saw the Styles Clash, and just a few minutes ago they saw Ospreay finish a match with the Styles Clash. So of course they were like, okay, this just might end the match here. We might be done. Then we get the Spanish Fly counter out of the Rainmaker, and look, in and out of countering moves with each other. Rainmaker by Will Ospreay. He follows it up with a Stormbreaker. Well, first of all, Will Ospreay kicks out of a Rainmaker, and then he lands a Stormbreaker, and Okada kicks out of that, and they're in and out. They're in and out of stuff. Okada reverses out of a Stormbreaker and eventually lands the Rainmaker. And that final sequence, just mind-bogglingly good. Just a tremendous match. I loved it. Again, another 5-star match for me on this one here. Just brilliant stuff from both these guys. Of course, Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada, who's still showing. Look, this week, again, on the Dynamite review, see, there's a theme here. You watch the Dynamite review, but seriously, on the this week, this past Friday, yesterday, well, the day before, I should say, I'm recording this on Sunday. On Friday, when I recorded the Dynamite review, I was saying how I think I got off the Kazuchika Okada train, and and I was giving it some time. I was giving it juice, right? Because there's a lot of people around me who were throwing their hands up in the air and were giving up on Okada. And we're like, look, he's not trying. He's not into it, and he's done. He just wants to, he wants to be surfing with Nakamura. This is what he's doing. He's surfing with Nakamura. That's where we're at right now. But so I said, just to wrap it up, I said, I'm off the train. I'm joining these people. I'm off the Kazuchika Okada and AEW train. That's all there is to it. But in this match, he showed, as many of us still did suspect to a degree, even though we were kind of fed up of waiting for it, but we still did suspect that he was, that he can still flip the switch and show that he has the fire, that he can have these incredible matches. He's just choosing not to. But when it's time to deliver, when it's time to make it big time, Kazuchika Okada shows up and we get the Rainmaker again, and we have the guy who was one of the greatest pro wrestlers to ever do it. Back in form, doing what he does best, and having great professional wrestling matches. And look, I'm not suddenly saying that, I'm not sitting here and, slapping my hands together and saying, all right, boys and girls, so now moving forward, we've only got the Rainmaker. We've got Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada back. Everything's great. He could absolutely he could go back to just being low effort Okada, right? He might do that. And I mean, look, we've seen Okada do this in the past. We've seen him do this. We've seen him, what was it, like last year? Wasn't it his last year in New Japan where they were, he had a herniated disc, right? In his back. And he was wrestling through it. And everyone was like, no, this doesn't work, right? That doesn't make sense. But that was the story that was being told. He has a herniated disc and he's still wrestling. And everyone was like, no, he wouldn't be wrestling if he had a herniated disc. It hurts like hell. Like it doesn't make any sense. But, that was the explanation that was given as to why he was having very average, subpar for Okada matches. And he also did that with Balloon Okada back when he was the balloon guy with the red hair. After losing the belt to Kenny Omega, he sort of went on this, it was a downward spiral, right? He dyed his hair red and he was having very poor matches, and everyone was like, oh, Okada doesn't have it anymore. I remember I was part of these discussions. And now that I'm thinking back at it, I'm like, do we have these discussions every 18 months or so? Is that where Okada's like, oh, I think Okada's done. And then suddenly, no, he's not done. Oh, I think Okada's done now. He's washed. That was the talk of his, I think it was last year, right? It might be conflating with another. Sometimes the eras are very wibbly wobbly, but wasn't it last year or was it the year before where everyone was saying Okada's washed, Okada's washed. The back issue, he's done, he's washed. He's not washed. This is just the guy who decides when to work and when not to work as hard. I personally would like more hardworking Okada because I think that's how he'll get himself over. But, he needed a big performance. I think he needed a big performance. I think he needed a big performance because of how his run in AEW has been so far, which has been very, very mid, which got me off the train, as I mentioned. And a lot of people didn't enjoy it. A lot of people just sat around going, okay, this kind of stinks. This is not great Okada work. This is very average, and he's one of the greatest in the world. What is AEW doing with him, right? I think he needed this to prove the naysayers wrong and sort of show that he still has it, that he's maybe a little more cognizant of the level of effort he needs to put in at different circumstances. He's not going to lay it all out on the line, on a random collision. Instead, he's going to wait for the big spot, right? That's what he wants to do. But I think mostly he needed a big performance here because of the final angle, right? I think he needed a big performance here so that the Kenny Omega, the prospect of a Kenny Omega match feels special again. Because if we had gotten like mid 2024 Okada, right, in this match, suddenly having him standing nose to nose with his greatest rival, doesn't seem as exciting. Where you're like, well, Kenny, we're going to see in a couple of days just where Kenny's at physically, but maybe Kenny is still great, but Okada has become very mid. He's not the Okada that had this great series of matches with Kenny. It just wouldn't have made it as exciting, especially considering that they seem to have earmarked this match for the All in Texas show, right? They seem to have, because after Kenny came out, surprise return, etc., and joined the ring and hit the ring to give Okada the belt, they had the little nose-to-nose, the face-to-face, with the All in Texas sign between them in the background. And you're like, okay, I see what you're doing here. You're letting us know without telling us, but you're letting us know that this is a match you have earmarked for Texas. And quite frankly, like, that's a big time match. That's a match you travel to. That's one where even I'm considering to be like, well, listen, I have never seen these two guys wrestle each other live. I have, and these are two guys that are getting, especially Kenny with the hell scares and whatnot. How many great Kenny Omega matches do we have left? Like really, really great. This is a match I've been like, maybe I should look into some tickets and, head on over to Texas for a weekend or whatever. Because I feel this is a match you travel to. This is something that, as a wrestling fan, happening in 2025, excuse me, this is a match that you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go. I'm checking this one out 100%. So Okada needed to have a big match to sell this as a big match. Otherwise, it's just another match. Otherwise, it's just like womp womp. Otherwise, it's just, oh, it's Kenny Omega, but against an Okada who doesn't seem to care anymore. Does that make sense? Because if you had phoned it in, regular ass Okada, the prospect of another Omega Okada match just wouldn't seem as hot. Now it feels hot because the match was hot. Because Okada looked like a fucking beast, right? So that's tremendous. So I gotta say, how this tournament has shook out. I mean, everyone involved in these in the finals, in the semifinals, everyone has something to do now. You got Ricochet, who's set up now with Swerve Strickland, and this they've been building for weeks. You've got Okada and Omega, the prospect of this coming up, like that's huge. That's going to be tremendous. And then you have Will and Kyle, who've got the rubber match in them, right? This is the next step. Like everything in these finals of the C2 were all perfectly booked. Everyone was at the top. All ends the tournament with something to do, with something high level to do. And that's great. Like that's really exciting. This, again, credit where credit is due. All of this is well booked. Super well booked. Don't have many complaints here. Especially not when Okada is, feels like Okada. Now, does this mean I'm back on the train? No, I'm not back on the Okada train. I'm excited. I feel good about it. Like, okay, so let's say if we continue the train analogy, I just got off of this station. I maybe got off the Okada stinks now train, and I'm gonna let it roll. I'm going to let it depart the gate, and I'm going to wait at the station. I'm going to wait. And maybe there'll be a couple of other, Okada is back trains, right? But I'm not going to jump on the first one I see. I'm going to hang around the station, going to have a little sandwich, going to get a nice little drink, bottle of water maybe, and I'll wait. I'm not back on it yet. Being wary. But I'll be damned if this wasn't promising. And again, like I said, I feel like we're back having more discussions about Okada being finished, and then all of a sudden he proves us all wrong. I think I'm starting to think that he takes great joy in doing that to wrestling fans. So there you go. We've got, I think, the biggest news covered. Oh wait, Kenny Omega returning. However, and still the biggest piece of babyface news, if you ask me, which is Christopher Daniels no longer being an EVP, interim EVP. Like, they put the kibosh on this, right? Because Christopher Daniels came out and he was supposed to give the Continental title to Okada, but he's like, I can't do it because I'm no longer an EVP anymore. And then Omega comes out, right? And I'm kind of like, okay, this is good, but I also don't understand. Like, look, the important thing is that the story is done. But I distinctly remember that Christopher Daniels was made an interim EVP and was going to be in that role until Tony Khan returned from injury. And Tony Khan returned, and Scrap Daddy Christopher Daniels was still around. Like, that didn't change. So I'm sort of shrugging. Look, it's done. I hope we never revisit this again. This story of authority figures and plot holes galore, right? I'm just glad they've officially pulled the plug on it. They've wrapped this one up. You guys and gals and non-binary pals know that I didn't like it, that it was dumb. Just glad it's done. And here's another thing about Christopher Daniels. Here's something else. Was it on Dynamite that he ran up to Hangman Page saying, look, brother, yeah, it was on Dynamite because I talked about it on the review. The review. You should watch the review. He ran up to Adam Page and saying, you know, I know in the main event you don't have any friends, you know, and you got the Death Riders, but I'll have your back if you want me, you know, whatever the fuck, you know, I'll have your back. Where was Christopher Daniels during this match? Because at some point, the Death Riders sort of overwhelmed people. They were doing interference right and left. Where was Christopher Daniels? I hope Adam Page, the first thing he does maybe on the Fight for the Fall in Dynamite is that he calls out Christopher Daniels and said, you said you'd have my back, you didn't have my back, I challenged you to a match. And then he just like fucking, you know, lariats him to death. Anyway, I'm so sick of it all. Look, I'm so glad it's done. I'm so glad this Christopher Daniels authority figure bullshit is done. There's a whole other card, Warren, that you should be talking about too. Yeah, really? Yeah, you should. Let's keep going down then. Mercedes Mone successfully retained the TBS title against Chris Statlander in another great match between these two, and another great match for Mercedes Mone. And not only that, okay, there's a lot of things to unpack here. Longest match of the show was this title match here. 24 minutes, 35 seconds, according to Cage Match. And it might just turn out that this is the first AEW women's match to last over 20 minutes. And I'm kind of shocked at that because I was under the impression. Look, I didn't really do deep research, but a lot of people have been talking about it. And, you know, I was like, oh, wasn't Britt versus Rosa over, you know, the blood match? Wasn't that over 20 minutes? Nope. No, like this is the first match to go over 20 minutes. And I thought it rocked. I thought it was great. I liked it a little less than Statlander Mone 1, but this was tremendous stuff. And what a final. I loved how this match was constructed. I love how, you know, how gritty it got at points. And look, I said it multiple times. Mercedes Mone, one of the great qualities of her style is the sloppiness she brings, but a sloppiness that works for her. Like, she's not a precision worker, and that's to her advantage. Because I think that when she does stuff like that pile driver on the apron, which looked infinitely rough. That's what it adds so much to the match. It adds so much. I'm like, oh my God, she almost killed her. you know, but it was great. Like, and she and Mercedes does 7 3 amigos, or rolling suplexes to the delight of the crowd. Statlander has been Statlander was using her power moves, and she's so good. Both of these women, they connect so well. This was so friggin' great. This is the stuff that you expect out of Mercedes Mone to begin with, especially at the price that she's been hired at. This is the stuff that you expect from her. And Statlander, she is so solid and reliable and good. And the AEW fans, they love her. They love her because they know she's one of the OGs. She's there from the start. People never gave up on her, even while she was gone for a while with an injury. Like, she's an easy shoe-in, right? I loved how she caught I love how she caught Monet off of a Meteora and into a power bomb. And then there was the whole spot, right? I think it was after the pile driver where they ripped off the ring skirt as they were falling off to the floor. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Basically the undercarriage of the ring is exposed. And you can see the truss, like the structure under there. And Mercedes wedges Statlander's boot into the truss there, and Statlander's stuck. So, Mercedes has her way with her and then leaves her out for the count out and whatever. And she just, does heel things. Statlander has to take her boot off. Like, she's like, I'm stuck here. So she wrestles with, one boot off for the rest of the match, which is awesome. Like, I thought it added such a grittiness to it. I thought it was great. But, like, Mercedes used it to her advantage, right? She slides out of the Saturday Night Fever into an ankle lock. And, oh, man, what a match. What a match. I gave this match 4 stars. You know what? I think I'm going to give it up. I'm going to push it up to 4.25. The more I'm thinking about it. Or I'm like, hey, you know what? I love this. This is so good. And another terrific match by Mercedes Mone, who, to close out the year, has decided to just have incredible bangers. Just like pump, 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 one after the other. We're not fighting Layla Gray here. No. She's like, give me the top level women, and I'm gonna go. Put me in, coach. I'm gonna swing for the fences. Tremendous stuff. Like, her end of 2024 has been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal. And I'm going to repeat what I said on the, I'm going to repeat what I said when I reviewed, what was it? Not Battle. I can never remember the New Japan Strong names. The Long Beach show. Not Fight for the Fall. Is it Strong Style Evolved? I don't remember. The Long Beach show, where she main evented with Husky. This is what Mercedes Mone should do regardless in the first place. That's what she needs to do, is wrestle. This is where she stands out. It's wrestling, not the skits, not the backstage gimmicks. This is always where this is where she stands apart. This is where she makes herself into who she is. This is why some people say, this is why people are reminded as to why she's quite possibly the best women's wrestler in North America, is when you let her wrestle. You let her go out there and do fantastic things. She has had nothing but hits. And here's another one that a lot of people had given up on. Let's go. Konosuke Takeshita successfully retained the AEW International title by defeating Powerhouse Hobbs in a kick-ass match. This just kicked ass. This is a match that just kicked a lot of ass. And I think some people I don't know what they were expecting out of Hobbs. Like, Hobbs is not your high-level Japanese work rate nerd, right? He's a big dude who kicks ass, and I think he's tremendous at it. He's been so good at it, in fact, that I don't have any issues with this match. This is really good, and you know, maybe to a degree, maybe some people were a little disappointed in this match because, or weren't as invested in it because Takeshita is going off to Japan, and on January 4th is fighting Shingo Takagi in a title versus title match. So, you know, maybe people, oh, he's not losing here. No, and there was this really scary botch at some point, you know, where Hobbs slips off the top rope, and so does Takeshita. I think Takeshita might have slipped off as well, sort of like to cover for Hobbs, not make it look like it was just him, which is tremendous stuff. And commentary covered for it well as well. But I think it's one of these botches that just added to the match, where it's like, okay, now it didn't take away from the match, it added drama to it. And they do a superplex. They do it again. They set themselves up again. They do it in a superplex, a top rope senton by Takeshita, spinebuster by Powerhouse, avalanche power slam by Powerhouse. And at some point, I love this. He's taking the knee brace off. The knee's hurting. Takeshita's working it, you know, the surgically repaired knee. So he takes his brace off. And commentary's like, yeah, because the swelling, it's probably... I'm like, oh, this might be a short term, a good move, but maybe long term might be a bad move. And I'm like, God, goddamn, this rules. Like, all of this is... Look, my stories don't need to be very complicated when it comes to pro wrestling. You just have to tell me something that makes a lot of sense. This was making a lot of sense. It was well exposed to me to make sense. This was great. 3 3/4 stars for me. After Konosuke Takeshita weakens Powerhouse Hobbs in a guillotine, which allows him to land the Raging Fire for the win. MJF defeated Adam Cole to retain once again the Dynamite Diamond Ring. I did not hate this match as much as other people did. A lot of people really didn't like this match. And I think that what it was is that a lot of people like me are just not invested in the story and were ready for it to be done. I think a lot of us were just waiting for all of this for us to finally start the healing from the brochacho stuff of 2023. I think we all needed this to begin healing, moving away from all of this, because, you know, it was not interesting. It was the least for the last few weeks. Well, since Adam Cole came back and whatnot, this whole MJF, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, Mike Taven, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett stuff has all been systematically the worst stuff on AEW TV. Like, it's systematically been the least interesting, sometimes the worst stuff. I don't think this match was as bad as, for instance, Cage Match would like you to believe. I don't think this was a particularly great match. I thought it was fine. This is a 2 3/4 star match. It's not a bad match. This was not a bad match, but it was a match that you could tell everyone just wanted to move away from, that we were excited to get done. I don't have many notes here about it, outside of the fact that, MJF does stuff and gets big pops from the crowd. Here's another, hang on, I don't want to say too many things at once. Let's start with MJF here. And what he did in the match, where he gets the Undisputed Kingdom expelled, Bennett and Taven, right? He gets them expelled because they're sort of standing next to the ring so that Max doesn't go and use it. And he sort of, does a little light, cheat, and steal style gimmick where he pretends Bennett and Taven attacked him while the ref's back was turned, and the ref turns around to see that once he slams the steel steps, and then he points to Bennett and Taven, and then the ref expels them. But they don't really get expelled the whole way. Like they're still arguing all the way up, and that allows Max to get the Dynamite Diamond ring, but he doesn't quite use it. It's Adam Cole then who gets the upper hand, and ultimately MJF low blows him and does the Heat Seeker for the win. It doesn't matter. Like, it's a bit, a little contrived. MJF wins the feud. And then he tries to Pillmanize Adam Cole, but then Roderick Strong comes out, and then Kyle O'Reilly, and they sort of get at MJF and drag him back to the ring, and he gets his comeuppance so that Adam Cole gets his heat back, and then Taven and Bennett join them in the ring, and then the Undisputed Kingdom is reformed. I frankly don't know who's excited about an Undisputed Era reunion, because that's what they were hinting at, right? Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong are back, and they did the high-low. I don't know who's excited about this. I don't know who's excited about another Undisputed Era reunion. It does nothing for me. Not anymore. It's like there was a time that made that, oh, this is cool, but even I remember when they did it back when Adam Cole had joined, and Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly were a thing, and I remember when they did it, and I remember saying, why are we trying to bring back stuff that happened in the other company? Can't we just build our own stuff? And now it's just like, now it just feels all contrived. The good part is that it does feel like this feud is finished. It does feel like everything is done now, and we're all ready to move on. That's the good part. Like, that's legitimately the good part. But like I was saying, but just before we wrap it up, there's a lot of stuff that MJF did in this match that got cheers from the crowd. I think people want MJF, and they want him in a prominent spot. I think they're excited at the prospect of more MJF. And I've always been a big proponent of MJF. I've always liked Max. I think there's a lot of people who are extremely hard on him for no reason. I can't defend the Brochacho stuff. That era really did stink. But, when MJF came back and cut that great hate promo, and the stuff that he did with Dan Garcia, like that to me is prime MJF and is great. That's where he should live. So begs the question, though, what's next for him, for MJF? I mean, what's next for the Undisputed Era? But that's, whatever. But MJF is a top guy in this company. And right now, the top guys are kind of like saddled into programs. What are we doing with MJF? That to me is very curious, because this audience wants some MJF. The AEW viewing audience wants MJF. What are we going to do with MJF? Don't have an answer because I'm not a booker. Mariah May defeated Thunder Rosa in the Tijuana Street Fight to retain the AEW Women's World Title. This, to me, was the worst match of the night. This I didn't care for much. 2.5 stars. Even when it comes to I was looking forward to it because the women's plunder matches, the hardcore matches that come out of the AEW women's division, are historically great, good to great. Not a lot of stinkers in the group, and are usually really, really entertaining. This did not fall into that category. I thought it was very average. I thought everything was very soft. The final spot, just tremendous. There's the driver off the apron was a hellacious spot. It looked really, really rough, actually. But all throughout the match, I don't know. Didn't seem like there was any snap to what they were doing. It just felt like they were moving from spot to spot. Didn't feel like a match. It didn't feel like a cohesive match, is what I should say. I don't know. They didn't do anything for me. Very soft. very predictable. Yeah, the tax and the pinata made me smile, of course. But that's the last show from the main card. The last match from the main card, right? Right. Other than that, we had a very, very, very passable 0 hour. Something that you really don't have to go back and watch anything at all. Toni Storm defeated Layla Gray. Layla Gray has still she was boasting in an interview. Oh, I went to train at the New Japan dojo, and as if she's still got a long way to go. Like there's a lot of things she hasn't put together yet. She hasn't put everything together yet. Like she's got stuff, right? She can, she can do moves, but she still struggles to put together a match. Toni Storm wins. Jeff Jarrett defeated QT Marshall. Fun little prelim where, QT's the ultimate heel. Jeff Jarrett teasing that his career might be coming to an end. He's going to reflect on his career, and he's going to tell us all about it on January 1st on the Dynamite Fight for the Fallen. So, but yeah, just skip the match. And then the 8-man tag match where Action Andretti, Leo Rush, and the Murder Machines defeated the Outrunners and Top Flight. Yep. Fine work. Nothing more to say. This was quite all right. Top Flight get the win. There was some, not Top Flight, excuse me. Andretti and Rush get the win, which is clearly setting them up for a tag team title shot against Private Party, who came out to do their song. I'm already over Private Party. I don't know. I've never really been into it. I was kind of curious to see what they were going to do with them as tag champions, and clearly it's not going to be interesting. I don't know why I thought it'd be different. I'm not into it. I'm really not into it. I'm not into it at all, actually. So might as well strap up Leo Rush and Andretti if that's what you want to do. But ultimately, you have to strap up the Murder Machines. That's what you need to do. That's the most interesting tag team they have right now. I know everyone likes the Outrunners, but I've made my case for reasons to not push the Outrunners, that they should never be pushed. And but the Murder Machines, that'd be great. Just run through the entire division, just beat all the fools up. That's what I'd like, but did we do it? We're done. We went through the entirety of AEW's Worlds End 2024. Again, a good show. A good show that I enjoyed tremendously. There's sit down, treat yourself to a good wrestling pay-per-view. That, if you're really, really, really strapped for time, you watch. Okay, if you're really super strapped for time, then watch both of Ospreay's matches. If you have a little more time, but not the full time, watch both of Ospreay's matches. Watch Monet and Statlander. And if you have a little more time, might as well watch the whole thing. Might as well just watch the whole thing. Look, you can skip Mariah Man Thunder Rosa. You can skip MJF and Adam Cole, and you can honestly skip the main event. 3 matches out of the 8 that you can skip into a nice little WWE special 5 match card. How about that? That'll make them happy. There you have it. There you go. World's End 2024. Good show. I recommend it. Enjoy if you haven't already. And if you have, well, let's talk about it some more another time.